Welcome to the Enlightenment Evolution Hour. I am your host, Rob Gauthier, the ET Whisperer. The Enlightenment Evolution Hour is a part of the Enlightenment Evolution Network. Any ideas or opinions expressed by myself, the guest, or a caller may not necessarily reflect the same opinions of the Enlightenment Evolution Network. Enlightenment defined. It's the state of giving and receiving greater knowledge and understanding about a certain subject or situation. Evolution defined. The gradual development of something, especially from a simple to a more complex form. So what then is Enlightenment Evolution? The state of giving and receiving greater knowledge as we develop from a simple to a more complex human being, living on Earth for our soul's experience. Welcome now and join us as we explore our Enlightenment Evolution Hour together. Welcome everyone to the Enlightenment Evolution Hour. I'm your host, Rob Gauthier, here with a very special guest who we will be bringing in just a minute. I want to thank everyone for showing up last week. We had an amazing show, lots of participation. We are going to be taking questions at the end of the evening as per usual. Since our revamp and since us coming back in to the collective energy, the Enlightenment Evolution Hour is going to be a part of the network, and the network is coming soon. So thank you guys for hanging in there. Thank you for being a part. Thank you for all that you guys are doing to support us here. And for those of you who aren't as happy about us doing the show here as you are the channelings, we're getting more channelings ready. We just did our open forum, which was an amazing thing. And we appreciate it for all of you guys. So before bringing in our very special guest, Jim, I want to make announcements here. First of all, we have our monthly channeling classes. This last one had to get moved. And we're going to do it at the end of this month. Those dates will be announced by this weekend for the next 3 months. So you'll be able to go to the calendar and find it. We're doing a total revamp of the website. As you guys can see, we've done a revamp of all of our stuff. And we're going to continue doing more revamps and modernizing and making it look better, not just here in the EEH, but also on the ET Whisper, also on our Patreon, also on all of our social media. So we're really excited that a lot of good things are happening. And we have got a list of guests, including next week, dear friend Casey Clark, who is an amazing channeler. She works with crystalline consciousness too. For those of you who might be in our community on Facebook, she's the one who goes into these crystals and pulls out the consciousness in the face and the amazing energy behind it, and then connects with the entity and their energy. She's an amazing person. I'm going to be having her on the show next week. I'm still waiting on word back from the 15th, but after that, we've got guests all the way through mid-June. If you want to know who the next guest will be, go to our Facebook page, the Enlightenment Evolution Hour. If you type that in, there's a page there. That's where we're going to be announcing all of our upcoming guests. And we've got a lot coming. And hopefully we're going to have a few people who've been on the show before, but are really great people that you guys enjoyed last time they're here, like when we brought Daryl back. Our guest today is also a comeback guest. The first time I met him, even though we talked through emails and messages a few times, the first time we had a chance to talk was on one of my earlier episodes of the Enlightenment Evolution Hour. Since then, I've got to know Jim. He's been an amazing friend. Jim is a channeler. He's a healer. He is a lot of things. And instead of me reading you a list of all of his accomplishments, what I'm going to do is bring Jim in and have a chance to talk to everyone themselves. And at the end of the night, we're going to give you guys an opportunity to ask Jim some questions to see what you think or what you're wondering or how things work. So if you got your questions, get them ready. And when I announce that we'll take questions, then just put them right down in the chat. And you can put them in the chat on the Enlightenment Evolution Facebook group if you're there. You can put them down at the page if you're here. And you can put them in our Twitch channel if you got them there too. So welcome, Jim. I'm going to bring you in. Hello, Jim. How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm happy that you're here tonight. I'm doing better today now that I'm here with you. It's been a long day. I was like, man, once we get to gym, then I'll know that the day is officially succeeded and that everything's gone perfect. So here we are, brother. Amazingly, I want for you to let people know, and I know you've told your story a million times. Every time you get interviewed, that's one of the first questions everyone says, how did you get here? Well, you can tell us that, but a lot of the people who are here also are aware of your work. So if you can tell us how you got here, but also tell us why you got here. A lot of people tell us the story, I did this, that, and this is where I'm at, but not a lot of people told us why they got there. Uh, when I asked Daryl that, one of his things was that he was learning about metaphysics and got excited and found the Seth Jane Roberts channeling, and that's kind of the why. And now I know your story of how you kind of got into this, but if you can share with everyone the story and the why, it would be amazing.
Very good. Well, first of all, it started in 2013, and I was doing Reiki at the time. I learned how to do Reiki, and that was the beginning of everything, really. It was a change of professions because I had lost my last job and I was getting older, and it just didn't look like that was going to reappear again. And so I started doing Reiki and I started working with people. And about a year into, or a couple years into the Reiki work, I started getting personal clients and work with individuals. And it was really a wonderful time. And I had a particular client named Max Rempel, who used to live in Rochester in nearby me. He now lives in San Diego. But Dr. Rempel is the first person that I channeled with. And it was an unusual situation because he's a scientist and he's someone that wanted to ask aliens about questions. And a couple times when I was there, I heard voices while I was doing my Reiki healings on them. And they were telling me, here, put your hand on his heart and feel the pulse there. Put your own hand on your heart and keep the pulse the same. Pulse together, and you can heal him in a greater way. And started telling me different things of that nature. And I told him during the session, there's somebody talking to me. I said, I'm hearing voices in my head. And he was like, because when you're on the Reiki table, if you know what it's like, everybody gets very relaxed. And so it didn't seem like much of a concern. So after the session, we talked about it. And he was like, oh, that was interesting. Maybe you're in touch with the aliens that are supposed to be around me since 2008, because he had a reading and they told him that he was, I guess he had some kind of reading that told him he had aliens around him. So I said, okay. I was a little bit hesitant to believe that at that time. But next week I came and I started hearing these voices again. He was the only client that I went to his house, except for a couple others. But I went to his house to do his Reikis because he had the tables and everything. So I was in his atmosphere in his household. So I started hearing these voices again. And I don't hear them any other place than there. So I'm going, that's a little crazy. So he heard me talking to them, or I was mumbling, and I said, I hear the voices again. And he said, really? And I go, yeah. And he said, let me ask him a question. And I said, sure. And my thought was, if they're going to answer any questions, it's going to come into my head like they're talking to me, and I'll have to tell him. So I went, okay. So he asked this really scientific question about molecules. And all of a sudden, bam, I turned my head and I just started talking to him. And it wasn't me. It was somebody else. It was this alien entity named, I can't, right now I can't remember his name, but he's very familiar to me. But it was like unbelievable. It only lasted a few minutes, maybe 5. My eyes must have been big as saucers, because he said, hold on, don't cut him off. He's saying the good things and whatever. So at the end of that, I was like, oh my God, what was that? You know, I was a little dazed and confused, basically. And so he was telling me, here, listen, the first person I ever listened to as a channeler that ever channeled was Bashar. He gave me some Bashar iPods to listen to. So I went and he said, there's other people like that. They channel. This is called channeling. And he sort of had to educate me a little bit on what was happening, because it was like sudden. And so I was like, okay. So I went home and I listened to some of that Bashar, and I was like, wow, this is really interesting. And, you know, I don't know if this is me, but it's definitely interesting. So I went back the next week, and hanging in front of the table was a microphone, or actually it was a tape recorder. And I'm going, what is this? He goes, well, if you channel again, I want to record it. So he goes, well, just start giving me the Reiki session, and it's already turned on. It has a lot of tape in it. So just let it go, you know? So I went, right. Okay. So anyway, I started channeling again. He asked a question, and it started to do it again. I just started channeling, and he had it all recorded. And he was like really amazed, because he goes, oh, you're a channeler, and you can actually get this information through, because I guess it was information that was not your normal information, because it was about science and things, which I don't know much about. So he was really quite happy about it. So anyway, I went back the third week, and he was filming it. So ever since the first few times I've ever channeled, I've been on film, and he started a website immediately to showcase my channeling talents, which is something unheard of. I never heard of anything like that ever. So I've been channeling ever since, and that was 9 years ago in May.
Yeah, it's been a long while. I know I've been doing it for going on 13 years now, and you were pretty young in my channeling career when I had met you, connecting with you early on. Yeah, so now I met Max before, Dr. Max. He is definitely an amazing guy and a character. He's a really great guy. He's really funny. And he's very knowledgeable about the entire channeling thing. So to have him come into your life was an amazing thing. Try to go before that if we're looking at it, because you said you had quit a job you were going to, and you started doing Reiki work. So I imagine you've been around Reiki for a lot longer than that. So even though that was your introduction to channeling, and that's how you got to be, the human colony channeler, the channeler of Elijah, the channeler of all these different entities and beings. What got you started into Reiki? What got you started into performing healing on others?
Well, that's an interesting story too, because I was working as a environmental services manager for a college, and that means that I was in charge of all the custodial, all the setups, all the buildings, etc. And I had been out of work for about several months because I was in a car accident and I had cracked my sternum. And so when I went back to work, I was 100 years behind because nobody was actually doing my job for me while I was away. And they expected me to catch up like right now. But I think in the works they had planned to replace me with 2 other people because I was making a little bit more than they wanted to pay. So I lost my job there and I was distraught. And I was like 58 years old. So I was like going, where am I going to find a job of the same caliber? Where am I going to find that job? And I was fretting and I fret for a good deal of time. And I was spending all my money from my credit cards and savings and everything, just, surviving. And I had friends of mine that named John and John. 2 Johns that I knew took me to Reiki. They said, this will calm you down. You need to go calm down, and we're going to take you to the Reiki. And it's called Reiki Share, and Gary's the head of it, and his wife, Diane. So we're taking you there. So I went, and it was really amazing. I got so relaxed. I had not been that relaxed for such a long time. And so I went back every week for several weeks until I said to someone, I feel your energies, man. They're really strong. They're really good. I said, is there any way I can learn how to do this? And they said, oh, sure. And she goes, when you're done with your healing, why don't you come over and help me with this person's healing? So I said, okay, that'll be cool. I really appreciate that. So I got done with my personal healing and was feeling amazing. And I went over and I was with Robin. And Robin and I were doing this. She was looking at me very strangely. And she was saying, just like, I could see it in her face. There was something bothering her or not quite right. And so she said, I want you to come in the kitchen right now. And we stopped the healing. And she took me into the kitchen. And she said, I feel your energy all the way across the table. She goes, let me see your hands. And so she looked at my hands and said, you're a natural Reiki healer. She goes, look at this. Look, blah, blah, blah. Pointed out all these things on my hands. And I'm like going, what? So I didn't even know that. But so she was the one that gave me Reiki 1 and Reiki 2. And so as I became a practitioner after Reiki 2, I started to get people wanting me to do their Reiki at home or to come to my house or whatever. So I already had a business with Reiki starting because they liked the way I did Reiki. So I was like, interesting. So, but I was still not making a living. I was still losing money, as you would say. So yeah. I was like, oh no, what am I going to do? Because if I go another month without making money, I'm going to be in the hole, and I don't know. I'm going to look for a good refrigerator box to live in. So that's the way I was feeling, but I just had faith that God would do something to help me. So I said, I'm going to push on. And at that time, that very month is when Max announced to everyone, Jim is going to be doing channeling sessions, and they're going to cost $90 an hour. This is after I was channeling for a little while. But he turned around my life as well with that statement, because within a month, I had enough clientele to cover my bills for the next month. So it was a miracle, really.
Yeah, it may be a miracle, but to me, and everything I've learned, tells me that you followed your excitement to learn these new things that were actually working for you, and it ended up working for you and opening up all the doors that needed to be opened up. And something I find that's very amazing. And, you know, I never heard that story. I knew you were a Reiki teacher and that you had dealt with that before you were channeling, but I didn't know that's how you got into it. So that's amazing. One thing you said too, I want to revisit. When you said you first started channeling, Max would ask these questions while you were connecting with these beings. And that's really what opened you up. And it's funny because I had asked Daryl, I said, a lot of people want to learn how to channel and they don't know how. You know, they can find people that teach them or go to classes, and that's fine. But for people who are just wanting to see if they can get started, what's the best way? And he said, ask the questions. Sit to someone, get in that state where you feel connected, where you want to bring forward information, and have someone who really needs their questions answered ask the questions. So that's amazing that you did that. Something that you and Max have done too is create a community. And this is something that I've always been excited about. It's the reason me and Kalina started the channel panel. It's the reason we're doing this radio network. That's why we did our own shows. We always think community is the best. The more people you have committed towards something that you're excited about and that you love, the better it is. So you guys have always done that. And one thing that I've noticed that has been really helpful to the community is you guys created a platform where people can come in and practice their own channeling. And by doing that, I've seen a lot of the people who started with you guys taking off doing their own things now and doing fairly successful in doing that. So it's really, really amazing to do that. What gave you that idea to just get people together and have them practice channeling? I mean, what got that started?
Well, there's several things. I can't say it's just one thing. It was an evolution of things, because we started off just doing webinars every week on Saturday for free and seeing who would come, and getting a little audience together and broadcasting and doing our little thing there. And people would call in and ask questions, and it just sort of evolved from that people wanted to learn how to channel. People wanted to understand why they were speaking light languages. They wanted to understand these things. So we started offering times to get together to do that. And I would put people in charge of doing that, because there were some people that were a little more advanced than others, and they could actually help people start to channel or help people start to do light language or whatever it is that they were looking for. So we got a community together, and it grew really well. Of course, it's evolved, it's changed, it's been many things. So, but as a community, we wanted to just give people what they wanted, and train and help them become their own, have their own mission or whatever. And many of those people are now channelers in their own right. So, and they have their own programs, and they have their own things that they do. So it's great. We're very happy about that.
Oh, I can imagine. You know, I've had some people who've taken channeling classes for me, personal channeling classes, and gone on to channel. So there is almost a sense like an uncle who's helping, you know, their nephew or niece learn how to play an instrument or play a sport. You're giving them this really amazing insight and information that helps them go on to do the same thing you're doing. So it is a great thing to see that. And I can understand the feeling of happiness and pride when you see them walking out saying, man, they did really amazing. I can't believe they gone through all their personal work and got that channeling to come through. So I can only imagine. But the weekly webinars, I think, as you said, that's kind of like the thing that really connected it all together. I've seen a couple, and I'm not going to go through any names or anything. I've seen a couple doing fairly well. They're out there putting weekly videos up on YouTube, sometimes daily videos for a few of the people I've seen. and they do it for a living now, or do it part-time, and it really does, for them, that's what they wanted. They wanted that ability to provide for themselves, as well as being able to be paid by others to do the job that they love the most, so that they can do it as frequently as they can and as much as they can, which is always amazing. Normally we wait to take audience questions till like the last 30 minutes, but one of them caught my eye, and one of them is right in alignment with what I was going to ask you too. Since you started channeling in your own life, what things have changed in your life, your outlook on life, the energy around that? How has that changed your personal experience?
Wow, that is a good question, because it has changed my life for the better, like you cannot believe. Like, this is what I was meant to do. I have not been happier since I've started channeling and making a living out of doing it as I've ever been in my entire life. And the reason for that is because I think it was God oriented. I believe God had his hand on that. I didn't just accidentally start to channel. I think that was something that was meant to happen. And so it changed my life from the very moment it happened. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't even know what channeling was. They had to explain it to me. They had to show me some iPods and different things, and for me to understand what channeling actually was. And then, on top of it all, within just a few months, I'm out in public channeling in front of groups of people. And that was just amazing, because in my entire life, I've never experienced anything that fast, that moved so quickly and felt so right. So I have to tell you, that was a big change in my life. And now my life is helping people, channeling with people, giving, letting the entities give them the information that they need, they want and desire. And now the evolution of Elijah speaks. He's been speaking for several years now, but he's becoming a more and more dominant portion of my channeling sessions, and more and more dominant part of my life as well. So it's been an amazing trip so far, and it continues to evolve.
Yeah, and this is something too I was going to touch on, so I'm glad you brought it up. Now, you've been channeling Elijah. Now, this automatically is a name that sparks a lot of different feelings on a lot of different people. When I hear the word channeling Elijah, not from you, if someone I didn't know said they were channeling Elijah, or channeling Moses, or channeling Enoch, or channeling any biblical name, even with the archangels, it was a really hard hump for me to get over, because of my own Christian problems that I had in my life, and my family being deeply Christian, and the traumas that I went through in going to church, and just all the things that had happened in my life. And don't get me wrong, my family's amazing. There was no abuse. There was no forcing of going to a church after I reached teenage years. Just the trauma, I mean, by taking me through a journey that I felt didn't help my spiritual development for the first half of my life. And then whenever I would question something, legitimately interested in getting the answer so that I could feel closer to that God, and closer to that religion, and closer to this thing that all of my family loved, I just got further away from it. And it was a bit heartbreaking for me. And there was a lot of trauma that went through there. This also happens to me when I hear someone use the word God, even though I know that God is a nebulous term, and a lot of people use it for different ways. So these things are triggering for me. Now, for you, when I hear you say them, I know the context there. I also understand who you are. You're channeling. We've been good friends for many years. So I understand all these things. So when I listen to it, I don't sit there with my mind going 100 miles an hour questioning, like, what's this about? Is this somebody who, you know, was a Christian, and this is how they're transitioning from Christianity to more metaphysical or New Age beliefs, or what's going on here. But for you, tell us first about who Elijah is, how you connected with Elijah, and then kind of explain the energy of Elijah, and then when you're speaking about God and what that means. Because I think a lot of people with Christian trauma are instantly turned off by those words, while people who are open to hearing everything are more willing to understand. So if you can share that, that would be amazing.
Yes. Wow, there's a lot of questions to answer that you just gave. So,
And we could go one by one too, if you want.
The thing is, when I want to go back farther, and you said you had trouble with your Christian life and such, and so did I. I had big troubles with it. I had big troubles understanding why they couldn't accept me for who I am. I had big troubles understanding why they seemed exclusive and not diverse, and they weren't opening their arms in love to everyone. They were selecting who they liked and who they didn't like, and that to me was a red flag. I was going, no, that's not how God is. That's not how I perceive him. I perceive him as fully open, fully loving, fully compassionate, fully wise, and all these other things, but not picky, and not someone that said talks down to people or gossips about people or brings them down. And that's what I was aware of in the church. And so I left the church, and my parents were very upset about that, and they started to really be quite very unhappy about it. And so we broke apart to some extent, but we came back together before I lost them. But the thing is, yes, I had trouble with the church as well. So with Elijah coming back to me, it was interesting, because what happened was this. I was in a I don't know what it was called. It was maybe a past life regression, maybe, but it was with a psychologist and with someone that did these things. And all of a sudden, Elijah emerged in that session and said, "I am your higher being." And I was like, okay, what do you do with that information, right? So
Yeah, that's a bit big, right?
yeah, it's so after that, it was several months, and then I started channeling him every now and then. He came through, and he would give these very stern messages, and I was going, that can't be really him, because he's not very loving or very caring. He doesn't seem very, what I would think that he would be like. But he explained to me in further sessions that this is a new day and a new era, a new time and a new place, and he has to get used to it, because he is used to the Old Testament times. He was an Old Testament prophet, one of the major ones that did a lot of amazing things when he was alive. He rose people from the dead. He went up against all the priests of Baal, and God worked miracles with him and consumed everything that the Baal had to offer, and their gods couldn't do anything. So I started reading about him a little bit. And so as I started reading about him a little bit and knowing more who he was, he started to mellow out and show his sensitive side a little bit more. He started to react in a more loving and kind way. But we had some differences in the way we thought. So Old Testament to now is a lot of different cultural changes. So
Yeah.
So to say the least. So we had to work those out. And then things got even better, and he started speaking more often. In fact, he started speaking on every webinar, almost every webinar, and then almost now every webinar. So he opens up every webinar. So he's an amazing energy. He's very loving, very kind, very compassionate. But his thing is, he doesn't care what you say. He doesn't care what name you call God, Creator, Source, Allah, Jah, whatever. He just wants you to talk to him. That's all he wants. He wants you to know him. He wants you to understand that his messages are coming from God. And that is what he wants us to know.
Well, that's amazing. This is something that I have found through my own channeling with Treb and Ardif, and other beings that I've done a lot of work with. I find, and actually it's something funny because Treb and Ardif ended up iterating these same types of messages afterwards. But I find that the way people see channeling is actually a lot different than what channeling can be. And what I mean by that is most people say channeling is one human or a group of humans taking one being or one consciousness or collective, bringing it through their body, speaking to groups of people in order for those groups of people to better themselves, or for the one person to better themselves, or for the other collective energy to be implemented with some of their own energy and love and expansion and growth. And that's true, right? I mean, that is true. But the part that I don't think a lot of people see, people who don't channel but who observe channeling, is that the entities that we channel are also growing. And there's something that ended up coming through. Treb used to say it all the time, and then Ardif started saying it in his own special way. He said, as we've channeled tonight, this is what Ardif says now, something like this: as we've spoken tonight, we've seen parts of your own energy while we're co-creating and reflecting with each other. We see parts of your energy that we never got to see before because of this exchange. And while we're reflecting information to you, you're able to see parts of yourself that you never saw too. And because all of us are connected and all of us are one, you're growing from the reflections that you have, and we're growing because we're not just seeing the parts of you that are growing. We're also reflecting the parts of ourselves that we've never been able to see and that we're also connecting to. So we're growing too. And when they said that the first few times, people's minds were blown. They're like, oh my God, you mean that because Ardif ends it with, we congratulate you for your growth and we thank you for our growth. And they're like, what do you mean? Like, us doing this helps you too? Of course it does. These are entities who have their own consciousness, who are in a physical body for the most of the part. And even if they're not, they're still in the structure dimensionally below a place where bodies are still held. So they're still not connected into all the stuff that's oneness oriented. Like, they're not a whole solar system. They're not a whole planetary system. They're not a whole galaxy or a whole universe where, you're plugged into everything else and you feel that oneness all the time and you see everything in that circle. These beings are personal consciousnesses in a big universe, absorbing and learning information. And that is exactly what Elijah represents to me by sharing that about his changes and his perspectives changing over time, working with you too.
Absolutely. He's done a lot of changing. I've done a lot of changing because of him. We have been working together, but he tells the world things that I hear from him that I could never say, not, at least not the way he says them, not with the confirmation that he speaks, not with the steadfastness that he has, and not with the power. He just is a powerful speaker, and I just am taken aback by him at times because I don't know what he's going to say ever. He never tells me ahead of time. And so everything is off the cuff there. He's not like sharing any messages with me ahead of time. I wish he would sometimes, but he doesn't. But no, it's all right there when he comes in. He just goes, and that's the thing I love about him is he has the confidence to do it, and he just goes. So
that's amazing, and I've noticed that he's become more a part of your normal channeling, even so much that right now you started a new channel with the help of your friend and getting that out. We'll talk about that too later and get all the links for all your stuff out. But if you're looking at that, do you think that he's going to be who you channel the most or all the time now? Like, I started channeling Treb, and then I started channeling these dozens of beings. And then Ardif talks now more than Treb, even though Treb's still present and Treb still talks with people. Some people only get sessions with Treb. And Patreon, people ask Treb questions all the time. So it's not like Treb isn't there. It's just Ardif's become more dominant in the channeling that I have for other people. So it's kind of like he's at the forefront more than Trev is now. Is that what you've noticed similarly too with Elijah? And if so, do you plan on making that change where that's all that you're going to do is channel with Elijah?
I see that he is evolving and becoming a greater part of everything I do. But I think that I will still continue to channel others. But you're correct that he will be a major part of what I do now, and a major part of my life when I do channeling. Now, I used to have Takur and Lakesh, and Dizdu was the first one I've channeled, by the way, and all these other beings that are so very much loved by the world. But now Elijah has sort of taken over as the main channel that I have here. And I understand how it works now that can happen. So it's just really interesting to me how he has grown into that spot.
Well, I mean, Lakesh is the one who Takur and Lakesh were the ones who I spoke to before we did a channeling on the last interview that you had, which is something that was very common. I used to have all my guests who were channelers channel, but the show tends to go now towards the experience of the person more so than the channeling. But the reason I'm checking into that is there something that Elijah's teaching you personally in your life and helping you shift through that the others aren't anymore? And let me give you an example. Treb and Ardif, when someone asks them a question, 9 times out of 10, I already know the answer. I ask them for advice on my personal life and my things that are happening to me, and I know what they're going to say. It's to the point where I don't need them, and I'm not smarter than them, and I'm not saying that I've graduated beyond them, like I've heard other people say. No, they're higher dimensional beings with much more consciousness available. But on the human level, from what they want to share with us and what they want to teach, I've learned a lot. And I always used to say I knew everything until I learned that I didn't know everything and learned something new. So they're always teaching me. But my point is the things in my life that have shifted by connecting with them, those things are done. Those things have already happened. And unless there's a new stage of my development with them, then there'll be something else. And that's when Metatron popped into my life. And that's when the Nihal Collective popped into my life, is like when I got to a place where the best of the best was happening and already going through with them. Is that happening with Elijah now? Do you think maybe that's why you're getting pushed towards Elijah more?
Yes, I can tell you that he has really enlightened me to many things. Although I was a Bible student at one time, he is bringing forth things that are actually prophetic. And he's bringing through things that are changing me and changing the way I live my life. and changing the way I see things and changing the way I see the world. And yes, it is that he is bringing about a lot of changes within, because I'm totally in awe of him at some points, because I could never say what he says and make it sound convincing, but he can. So it's like, wow, I'm learning more about myself because of him, who I need to be, who I am going to be, and who is what is going to happen with me. Some things are opening up, and it just is amazing to see the growth that is there.
Well, I'm very glad to hear that, brother, and that's always something I've noticed too. Whenever time is for something new, then you'll always get a new experience. So we've talked about channeling almost nearly the whole night. So I want to switch gears a little bit. What does Jim Charles do when Jim Charles isn't channeling? I know that you spend a lot of time in community still. You're very accessible to people. You've had people in your house before for the live streams. You've gone out to dinner with people and all of these things. So you've been very good about being a good part of the community and accessible. But what are the things you do for fun? Like when you're not channeling or when you're not with the community, what do you do that's just for you?
I have this tiny little CD collection. Yes, I have this. I listen to music and I listen to audiobooks, and I constantly try to be doing something. So, and yes, I work in the community sometimes as well. I still do Reiki in the home. I still do all the things that I used to do, plus teaching classes. And it's for fun. I travel. I'm going to be traveling here very shortly. I'm going to England from the 6th to the 23rd. If anybody wants me to speak in England, let me know. I'll put in a word there. But it's, yeah, I just enjoy my life these days.
I mean, you can't do much more than that. That's the best calling that you can have. And when you say you like music, this is something I did with Daryl last week. It's something I'd never tried before. And we'll actually get to that right before we take questions for people. It's called the lightning round, where I just ask you a bunch of questions, things that people don't know about you that would be interesting for them to know if they did know. We'll get to that in a minute. One of the questions I was going to ask, what type of music? What's your favorite genre? What's your favorite band? What's your favorite song? Because I'm a music guy too, but I'm the easy guy. I do Ween all the time. Ween is my favorite band. I can listen to them 24 hours a day. Part of it helps because every song they do doesn't sound like the other one, yet you can tell it's all Ween just because they've got that weird style. But I played CD of Ween, some of the older things like Chocolate and Cheese or Pure Guava, and I would play it for people, and people would be like, wow, this is a neat mixtape. You got a variety of kinds of music. I was like, dude, that's the same artist. And they're like, nah. So Ween, they can stay fresh. But for you, what's the favorite genre, artist, song, any of that you want to share?
Well, I love everybody. I listen to everything. My favorite is Elton John. I love Elton John. I grew up with him and find him to be an amazing artist. But there's so many other artists that are very amazing, and some you've never heard of as well, like XTC and Spock's Beard and things of those nature. I have lots of different international favorite bands. So yes, one of my favorite songs of all time is a Bonnie Raitt song. So that's something different because that's more on the country line, but it's an incredible song. So it is. You don't have to. You can't say you love me if you don't, and I couldn't get that out. But but there's so many great things out there to listen to. So I really am a connoisseur of music.
It's funny. How old are you, Jim, if you don't mind asking?
I am now 67.
I knew you were in your mid to later 60s, and you're incredible. You look much younger than that on all your pictures, which is a testament to how happy you are and living life that way. I see we got a lot of Ween fans in the chat. Hello. But you grew up kind of like a half generation after my dad and like a quarter generation after my mom. So you listen to some of the things they were listening to, like as a child, you were listening to the same things they were listening to in their early 20s. My dad was born in like 45 and my mom was born in 51. So that gives you an idea. Elton John was a big one. And my dad put me into the introduction to the Pinball Wizard. And still to this day, I got baby Lilith to listen to it. She loves that song. Jeremy loves it. We listen to it at least once every couple months, and we blast it on full. And we get the music video up where Elton John's got this 12-foot stilts playing the pinball machine. That was amazing. So yeah, I love that. You said XTC. What's that stand for?
Well, XTC is the name of the band. I don't know what it stands for. It's just XTC. I think it's a shortened version of ecstasy. So, but they're sort of a punk pop band, and they're from England, and they were amazing, in my opinion. And Spock's Beard is a more progressive group that does very long things like Yes used to do and Genesis used to do. So, yes, I'm interested in a lot of different things.
That's amazing. You ever listen to any punk music like Dead Milkmen or Dead Kennedys or anything like that?
Yes, I have everything. I can tell you that I listen to all genres except for heavy, very heavy rap. It gets me down a little bit, or very heavy jazz that doesn't seem to make any sense in my head. Sort of short circuits me. So that's about it.
That's fair. So no gangster rap and no freestyle jazz. Gotcha. That's perfect. It's funny. Lee Harris, another channeler, another good friend, had said something like he used to listen to heavy metal, and that was a surprise to me. I couldn't picture him listening to heavy metal. So to know that you've listened to the Dead Kennedys before and some punk bands, that's amazing. I'm gonna sing you some Ween after we're done with the show and see what you think about that, because Ween is great. I sent some to Daryl after we did our interview because he was talking about music, and he's like, "Well, the video was cool, but the music, it's not up my alley." So definitely, Ween is not for everyone. But so we're close enough to do the lightning round, and we already did kind of the lightning round. But I just want to ask you some questions, some random, stupid questions, to get to know you better, so that they can get to know you better. And we'll go from there. How's that sound?
Great.
Okay. What's your favorite car you've ever owned?
Oh, let's see. You may laugh, but my favorite car was a Toyota Corolla.
No, that's a good car. What was it you liked about it?
It good gas mileage, it ran smoothly, and it lasted a long time.
That's it. It's funny. Daryl said his car was the one he's got, and the reason was gas mileage and that it was fun to ride in. So that's perfect. What's your favorite food?
My favorite food. Oh my goodness, I like food. I like Italian food, and I like Chinese, and I like Thai. I think Thai right now is one of my favorites at the moment. I go through stages where I like Italian, French, every kind, but right now I'm stuck on Thai for a while.
Yeah, Thai food is amazing. If it's done right, it can be amazing. Let me see. What's your favorite movie?
The Fifth Element. Have you ever seen it?
Oh, yes. Wonderful movie. I love that movie.
It sort of has everything in it. It has comedy, it has action, it has aliens, it has good guys and bad guys. It's so well done, and I loved their representation of the music in that film as well. So I liked everything about it. It was my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah, it was amazing movie. What is your favorite color? We didn't get that one.
Okay, that goes from season to season. Sometimes I like the very beautiful blues in different shades. I do like purples and greens, but I think blue is my favorite color. Not to be too average, but I just love luminous blues, very bright blues.
I don't blame you. Blue is my second favorite color, so I'm right. And it was Daryl Anka's favorite color too. So yeah, it's a very beautiful color. Blue is great. Um, did you ever like sports when you were younger?
Bowling. I was a bowler, and I also loved. Well, my father was a basketball player. My father was a golfer. My father was all these things, and I just wasn't into sports because I felt a little. I was real thin. I was real gangly. Not anymore, but when I was young, I was real not very athletic. So I do like bowling. I do like golf, miniature golf mostly.
Well, I knew you were a bowler. That's why I had asked, because I wanted to see. Bowling is one of my favorite things. So, what's the highest score you've ever done in bowling?
My highest score is a 247, I think.
Oh, you beat me. Mine was a 232, and I only got that close once. The rest of them skirted around 190 to 210.
So I was in a tournament once, and I won the tournament for the single bowler, uh, and I had an over 600 series, and that was like the very first time I ever had a 600 series was in tournament. So it was like, wow, that was a shock.
That's amazing. A 600 series, amazing. I used to be on a bowling league with my friend Matt Elwell, who passed away suddenly in his early to mid 30s, just out of nowhere. As a kid I grew up with, that was a really close friend of mine, but me and him used to go with his grandma and grandpa every weekend and do bowling leagues. So my dad was a huge on bowling. He was good. I mean, he used to bowl 230, 240 average. His mom was on a league and she bowled 260 average. She was real good. So yeah, bowling's kind of a family thing too. That's how I remembered about that. So that's amazing. I want everyone in the audience to get your questions for Jim ready. We are going to go to that in just a couple minutes. One more question before we get to everyone else's question. I'm trying to think of a good one, something that no one probably has ever asked you before. What is your favorite place that you've ever been in the world to visit, whether it's vacation, whether you've done channeling, or whether you've done some other kind of work there? What's the favorite place just to look at the natural beauty around you?
I'd have to say I went to Puerto Rico with my friends a long time ago, and it was stunning to me. It was a really stunning place. But I also loved going to the pyramids, and the Mediterranean Ocean is the most beautiful body of water that you ever want to see. And so being on the Mediterranean Ocean was one of the most beautiful things I can remember.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I've got a dear friend, actually. He was in the comments here earlier from Puerto Rico. Panteris Landia Wickedness in the comment section. He's from Puerto Rico. And yes, it is a beautiful, beautiful place too. Unfortunately for me, my dad was in the military and he got out when I was very young. So we moved around in the States quite a bit until I was 4. But I have only ever been to Germany, and that was for my dad's second to last position that he had in the military. And both of my sisters, my younger and my older sister, were born in Germany, um, both on the opposite sides. So my dad had my older sister, then they came back to the U.S. to West Virginia, had me, and then went back to have my younger sister. And back then, it was West Germany, and if I would have been born there as a male, I could have had dual citizenship, whereas you're born there as a female. If you're not born on the American barracks, you would be given a choice. So my younger sister was given a choice. My little sister Mary, do you want to be a German citizen or do you want to be an American citizen? And of course, my parents are like, yeah, she's got to be American citizen, American citizen because she's coming home with us. So, yeah, it's an amazing thing. Germany, I only remember a couple things from it, but it's beautiful. I'd like to go back there. I plan to go back there in the next couple of years, get us over there and rocking and rolling. All right, guys. Questions for Jim? I want you guys to put those out. Let's go. This isn't a question, but it's a fact. David says, fun fact about Jim, he's being very modest. He actually owns close to 6,000 CDs and literally has everything, everything. So reply to that, Jim.
Guilty as charged. I do have a lot of CDs. So, and I'm a collector of music. So that's my big thing. I enjoy listening to it. I enjoy collecting it. And yes, I would just have to say yes.
Beautiful. And Zeno says, very modest way he described it. I pictured a stack of 15 CDs. Well, it's not that for sure. Our next question's from Sean, and Sean says, is Jim going to England for any specific reason?
I'm going to England to be at the solstice or at Stonehenge. That is my big event that I want to go to. I want to be at the solstice during Stonehenge, or be at Stonehenge during the solstice. I said it backwards. Yes, there's many things that I want to do there. I want to look at a lot of different things, and so, but if anybody wants me to speak anywhere, that's fine. I can do whatever I need. I'm going to be there for 17 days, so I'm free to do what I wish.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you guys are over there in the UK or anywhere in Europe and you want to chuck over to the UK and you want to have Jim come speak at an event for you and want to set one up real quick, go ahead and get it ready because he's coming. All right, guys. Trinity says, who is your favorite alien and why?
I think my favorite alien is Takur, because she sort of is like a motherly figure as an ambassador to the earth. She's very motherly, and many people just love her, even though her voice is lower than mine.
Yeah, that's actually the being who you channeled when you came on my first show. When I heard the pronoun she, when you were talking about her afterwards, I was like, oh, wow, that was a female. And Ardif gets that with his art too. A lot of people are like, oh, wow, Ardif's so beautiful. If she was here on Earth, I'd ask her out for a drink. I was like, oh, I'm sure he would love it, So he gets that just from his physical appearance because he's got a feminine look. And yes, it was beautiful. And Takura brought great info too while we were over there. So, all right, our friend from Greenland, Malik says, can Jim channel mythical creatures from indigenous people's myths?
Yes, if I know their name and who they are, I can bring them in. Usually if someone is called, they come. And many times I don't even know who they are. But as long as they're a positive being or a neutral being, I will channel them. If they're a negative being, I would prefer not to channel them. And I have stopped channeling any kind of negative entities, because it's just not good, and I want to be on the positive side of things here.
Yeah, it's definitely a very heavy energy if you're channeling malevolent or semi-malevolent beings. It definitely can take a toll. I've been lucky when I channel Treb and Artif are like operators for me. They do all the plugins, so I don't have to really do as much. But after channeling a few beings that were perceived as negative, like draconian reptilians and things, it's a very heavy energy. I channeled one entity that's connected to Kalina, and I ended up falling asleep directly after, and I never do that. So yeah, it's definitely a thing. Zainab says, and I'm sorry, I know I butchered how to say that. I have a question. When Jim talks to Elijah, the prophet, peace and blessings on him, does he see him or feel any lights or sensations? Does he seen any? Has he seen any other prophets? Sorry about that. It was a tongue twister.
Okay, yes, I don't see him, but I definitely feel his energy. Absolutely, he's a very strong presence, and he's a very positive presence. At least he's getting more. He feels more and more positive all the time. And yes, I've channeled other prophets, but it's rare. Only if I am asked to.
All right, fair enough. All right. Chimingus says, "Are you going to the Shard? I watched it get built in Astral, and it's a portal and can be healing." I imagine that you're speaking about the Shard that's at the cripes, the Stonehenge that you're going to.
Yes, I'm going to Stonehenge to experience the whole thing, the energy of it during the solstice, the shard, whatever is there that is going to speak or to give me energy or to let me know that it's what's happening in the world. I have a feeling that this solstice is going to be very special for me, so I'm there for whatever the reason is that I'm going to be there. I know there's something for me, but I don't know exactly what.
Okay, and I was updated that the Shard is a skyscraper in London, so it's not a part of the Stonehenge. My bad.
Okay.
Yeah, so if he's saying if you go there, then you'll be able to check out that, and that it brings healing. And I'm sorry, I said he. It could be a she. I'm not sure. Just with Jim at the front of it, I assumed. Oh, my bad. All right, this is a question I have no clue if you'll be able to answer without channeling. So if you can't, just let us know and we'll skip past this one. But Tanita asks, how is my learning going at the human colony?
So
I can just check in with them, but most people have a wonderful time when they're at the colonies, even though they don't remember them. Some people are starting now to remember little bits and pieces of coming back from the colonies and what they learned and what you do. But they're telling me that you enjoy the several different colonies, the meditation colony, which is 7. You like the first colony, which is light language and telepathy, and you like the 4th colony, which is channeling.
All right. Well, I want to, for people who don't know, Human Colonies is what you created with Max, the website, the channeling. But what is the Human Colonies for people who don't understand what that is or what that means? What's going on there? What is it? How does it work?
Yeah. Well, the Human Colonies started with the alliance of Girkfitnir, Girtfitnir. They're an alliance of about 7 or 8 different species and they're here to help the earth in as many ways as they're allowed to. And they created these colonies for people to come into the astral and learn things, and then take them these informations back to their body and remember them at a different time or a different date or when they need them. And so whenever they are on the colonies, they're learning different kinds of things. So, and when they come back to the earth, that all goes to their subconscious. But yet, many of them are able to draw out some of that information in their futures, in their time that they're living. And they can actually say they know that it's from the colonies. Even though they don't remember learning it, they know where it's from.
That's very interesting. It's beautiful. I know when Treb and Art have talked to a lot of people, and a lot of people ask what they're doing in dream states, a lot of the time they're told that they're going into astral projected realms and doing work with their guides and doing work outside of Earth, and sometimes on ships, sometimes on other planets. So I imagine it's a pretty common experience for people to do that. So it would make sense for these extra dimensional beings to set up these places for learning, like schools for learning for humans when they're outside of their body. I know the soul is always in desire. Have you found a lot of people bringing back memories, like larger memories, life-changing memories that you've heard?
Let me put it this way. I had one life-changing memory from visiting the colonies myself, so I'll speak about that. What happened was I had this elaborate dream that I went to the colonies, and I went to where they call the crystal room, and I was talking to Takur. And I remember seeing her there, and I remember when I woke up in the morning, I go, I had a dream about Takur, and that very, very, very same day, somebody emailed me or texted me or something and said, I saw you in the crystal room with Takur last night. And that blew my mind. So yes, people do. There are some people that do bring back quite a bit of memory from the colonies.
That's amazing. It's always nice for confirmation for people. I know with my own connection with Trev for so long, and then meeting Ardif and connecting with him, there's just this place inside me that understands and knows the experience of what's happening. So it's not super hard for me to make the conclusions of other things that might be happening, or just me knowing when I experience something how real it is and visceral the experiences for me. But when people have confirmation, shared dream states, shared meditation states, shared visualizations, even if they're using plant medicine rituals, things like that, a shared hallucination is what they'll call it. It's always something that's very powerful, confirming to the people, but also expansive for them, because they understand then, hey, this spirit thing that we believe is happening outside of the body is actually happening to us. So it brings about a very great amount of relief for them, really. Like when the first time a Christian prays and feels that energy of the Holy Spirit, or hears God talking back to them, it's something that's amazing. And I'm going to go to this question to John Craig. Hello, brother. How are you? John's an amazing guy. Him and his partner will be on too in a show coming up next month. I believe it's the mid-month. Yes, July. And I believe it's going to be around the 13th. On the 13th or around, we'll be announcing that too. John says, hi, Jim. Is Elijah considered an ascended master? And if you have channeled ascended masters, do you feel the difference in focus and frequency? For example, have you ever channeled Kuthumi? I would imagine that's how it's pronounced. Kuthumi, Kuthumi.
It's pronounced Katumi, and yes, I have channeled Katumi. In fact, I do a regular channeling to a couple of my clients of Katumi. And yes, I've channeled ascended masters such as that. And yes, there is a difference in energy. Elijah is a prophet, and I'm sure he's considered an enlightened entity, but the others don't come in as strong, or I don't feel them as strongly as I do him. But yes, I have channeled ascended masters many times, actually. They come through and they say some pretty amazing stuff.
Well, do you feel like they have a different type of focus on what they want to help humans with than the ETs do, or the human colony beings, or even like, well, no, because Elijah would be considered one of them. Maybe different than the archangels. Do they do something different with humans than the other beings are doing?
Well, they each have their own agenda, of course, and they do have their own special feeling, their own lightness, their own sparkle, if you will. But they have their own agendas, and if you get out of their topics, or out of the things that they can talk about, they usually refer back to somebody else or tell you to go somewhere else. But that's rare. They usually answer all the questions, and they're usually very informed about their own lives and the lives of the people around them, etc. So yeah, they're very interesting to channel, because they give you a different feeling. I get a very strong feeling with Elijah, and I get a lighter, more ethereal feeling with angels and ascended masters.
I see. That makes sense. All right. Well, thank you for sharing that. Oshana asks, "Hi, Jim. What is your advice for people wanting to learn how to channel or get into channeling?"
First of all, I want to tell you that just clear yourself out first. Become who you're supposed to be in your own mind. I mean, look deep inside and clear yourself. The first thing to do. And the next thing is to, like we said earlier, have someone start asking questions and allow those entities to come in. I would request you do positive energies, but allow them to come in. Don't force them to come in. Feel them coming around you, like maybe even touching you a little bit, or shimmering your hair a wee bit, but allow them to come in on their own terms, because I do teach classes about how to become a channeler, and there are certain areas of the brain that are open for channeling, and those areas you must allow to open. So it's a process, yes.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, brother. I appreciate that. I want to touch back on a topic real quick before we go to the next question. You suggest that they connect to a more benevolent being, and we have a lot of people in our community who only will listen to benevolent beings, neutral beings. The malevolent ones tend to feel upsetting to them. And you said it just wasn't good for you. Maybe even inferred it was a little bit heavy and a little bit taxing. Was there another reason that you chose? Because for me, to hear the perspectives of malevolent entities also serves a purpose to some degree, because either you're going to find something that you don't resonate with, so that you know more inside yourself that that's not something you want to align with, or they can still give amazing insight about topics that are going on with Earth from a very human perspective, because they've mastered the duality of the negative, which is something that we're trying to get over, or through, or transmute as we're going through it as humans. So, I mean, the insight, it just depends on who's asking the questions and what kind of questions are being asked. But in general, they can give good perspectives. Is there any more reason that you feel like you don't want to connect to them, or is it just the personal exchange of energy with them is just not feel good or resonate with you?
Well, okay, that's a loaded question, because yes, sometimes and what can be perceived as a negative energy come through and give a positive message, and then are they a negative being really? So you have to wonder if that's really a negative being, or if they have learned something from being ascended or coming into a new life or a new spirit. So yes, and some people judge you on that, though. Many people will judge you on who you channel, and I try not to fall into that category, because I want to make sure that the messages are all positive. But if they hear a certain name, some people just immediately turn off and say, that's a negative energy. I don't want to hear what they have to say. So there's a lot of very closed people out there. And I just don't want to make them confused in any way, shape, or form. But I have had entities come through that are considered negative, but gave more positive messages and did not do the negativity, because I asked them if they're going to come through only to do a positive message or only give a positive representation of themselves.
Yeah, and that's kind of my school of thought on it. The most flack I've ever got for doing a channeling was the Theta reptilian race, which is a very powerful albino white reptilian race. And a lot of people were either very turned off by it or were interested and intrigued. One guy, a good friend of mine who's also going to be on the show, Canadian Awareness, Anthony, he's been connecting with the theta energy for close to a year now, probably even more than that at this point. And he's developed an amazing relationship, and they're very helpful, and they're very, very direct in how they share their information. Most people would say, wow, because the message that came through that day is, hey, I'm trying to think of exactly what was said, but to the effect of, your world's going through problems because you guys are too lazy to do the things you need to do for yourself, and this and that. So there's a feeling of judgment that comes along with that affected most people. But in all reality, this being wasn't wrong in what they were sharing and saying, because a lot of the people on Earth who don't stand up for what they believe in, or don't care to have their own thoughts, or care to empower themselves instead of depending on the power of others, that's a true story. So it was still held a very high value to the message, but the messenger and the way it was expressed was really looked at as a bad thing. And it reminded me, because I got a comment in the last video from a person who's followed this channel for a long time, and he's a good guy, and we met him in Asheville, and he said, jokingly, he's like, hey, I don't feel like there's enough diversity on your channel. All these beautiful, malevolent beings in the universe, and you're only channeling the nice ones. So it reminded me of that. So that's a very good topic too, for today too. And thank you, Brett, for bringing that up to help me think of it. But thank you too, brother, for your perspective on that. So I think I missed a few here. Jamingus asks, does your imagination help get into the channeling state, or any specific crystal that you're aware of? I don't know if this is meant as a question for you specifically, or just do these things specifically help people in general?
Well, I don't use my imaginations to get into the channeling, but I do have my Herkimer diamond here that is very powerful and has many messages in it that it's already released many to the world and to certain peoples. And I feel just very, very close to this particular crystal, this Herkimer diamond. So, but I don't use any imagination. In fact, I try to lose my own imagination, in the sense that I want them to come through as clear as possible in their own personality, their own thought process, their own right, if you will, and give the message that they want to give without me interfering in any way, shape, or form.
That's beautiful. I really think that's a great thing. We've got a question from Jessica. Jim, how have you dealt with humans who may have judged you for your gift of channeling?
I get that all the time, actually, because I have people write negative comments to some of the work that I do. But you know what? I choose my battles on that ground because most of the time it's not worth responding to, and I really sort of uh, see it as that's their problem and not my problem. If they're listening, then they need to turn it off if they don't like what they hear. So if you don't like what I have to say, then don't listen. So I want to talk to the people that want to hear the truth, that want to hear the messages of the aliens. I want to talk to the people that are honest with themselves about wanting to hear these different things, instead of somebody that's on there trying to really destroy morale or do anything. It doesn't affect me at all anymore.
Yeah, it's something that we as channelers get a lot of is trolls or Christians who believe that you're bringing through demons. I think that's probably pretty universal through most channelers. But this is something me and Clean have talked about in depth. There's a difference in the Christians who communicate with me. There's two types. You're bringing in demons. You're going to create hell on earth. You should quit doing it. You should be killed. We've had really severe ones. All the way through, the very nicest of Christians who are like, Rob, you seem like such a nice guy, and I really am worried about your soul. And these people believe that what's happening is that we're bringing Satan's beings through and we're getting manipulated ourselves. And they're concerned about my eternal soul. And to me, that's not a problem. If you have a belief that says I am going to go to hell for channeling, and you're trying to convince me not to because you're worried about my soul, that's actually very kind and very loving, even though in my own mind it's a bit misguided and misplaced. I'm sure I have beliefs that are also misguided and misplaced. So I understand that, and I can handle that a lot better than I can just the trolls and the people who want to do. We had to kick out a troll on our last live stream too, who just came in to rile stuff up. Some people just want to watch the world burn or want to trigger a bunch of people. Because they think it's funny to get that reaction. But I agree with Jim. If you don't pay attention to it, it's not going to be a problem. Into the Light has an amazing question. This is one I've only heard a few times because most people who are coming to me are wanting to learn how to channel. They're not already there. And Into the Light says, do you have any advice for somebody who channels and also has anxiety about channeling publicly?
Absolutely. If you are channeling to bring information to the world that is beneficial, your fear should not be part of it. You should learn to not be fearful about it. Most people, when they feel fear about channeling, is because they feel like they're going to be possessed, or they're going to bring in bad information, or something negative is going to happen, or they're just not the right person, or whatever. But remember, if you have been gifted with channeling, you are a special person. Not everybody in the world will be given this gift. Use it wisely. Do not be afraid of it. Do not be fearful of it. Embrace it, love it, and allow it. For you will learn so much about yourself and the world around you that you will be amazed. I want to be an advocate for more channels because I believe information is coming in so directly from outer space and from angels and from positive species, and it needs to be embraced, and certain people bring through certain kinds of entities. You may be in touch with an entity that no one else can bring in, so embrace it. Be fearless. Love yourself and don't doubt yourself. This is a wonderful gift.
I love that. Thank you, brother, for sharing that. We're getting to that time where we're already at our 90 minutes for the night, guys. So we're going to start wrapping it up. We got a lot of thanks for you being here in the chat. So I want to thank you. But before we go for the night, I know that you've got a new channel for Elijah that's on YouTube. That's just your channeling with Elijah, and that's something new that you're putting in your energy into and sharing. How do people find that, and how do people find all the social media links that you're involved with, that you participate in, and that you put content into?
Well, it's all on the YouTube channel, Elijah Speaks, all the information that you need. But it is Elijah Speaks, and if you find it on YouTube, all the other information is there. My email address, some other information as well, I'm sure. It's a new YouTube channel, so this is only our 6th broadcast that came out yesterday. So it's rather new, but it's getting a lot of very positive feedback.
Yeah, well, anything you do is great. And this is the one thing I've said about you, brother. You are one of the people in our community who is a channeler themselves, who's a public professional channeler, who does channeling for a living, who lives, breathes, and eats channeling. There's not a ton of us out there, even though there's a lot of channelers now. Not everybody has been able to keep that as their only income and only channel for a living. It's usually people like us who've been doing it for over a decade. So that's a big part of it that helped. We got our feet into community where before it was crowded, but you are one of the few people, and I always say this. I said this the last time we talked, and I said this the last time that we communicated, is that you and Lee Harris are probably two of the nicest human beings that are channeling in our community that I've ever met. And don't get me wrong, I know a ton of channelers. I'm good friends with a ton of channelers. Like even Daryl. Daryl's a great guy. He's nice. He's funny. He's great. But you and Lee have that thing where no one I know could come to me with a straight face and say, you know what, that Jim Charles is a jerk. No one would do that, because no one can do that, because you're such a nice guy. And I really think that our community needs more of that. And I really appreciate you being here tonight. I appreciate you being a part of this. And I just want to say thank you so much, brother, for being here. And thank you for all that you do for our community.
Thank you so much for having me. And I can say the same thing about you, Rob. You are one of the nicest and most amicable people that I know, and you have the greatest heart. You and Kalina are just amazing. And I just thank you for having me on the show tonight. And I just love talking to you, even if we're not on a show.
I know, brother, and we haven't got a chance to do that. My life has been crazy. You've been super busy, so it was good to catch up tonight, and we'll continue to keep communicating. I love you, brother. Thank you for your kind words, and I want to thank everybody here who made a donation tonight. Sean, you gave a great donation earlier today, and for all who did it right now, Jessica, thank you for your donation. Zainab, thank you for your donation. Thank you all for coming on tonight. Thank you, Jim, for coming tonight. If you want to check out Jim, you can go to the Elijah Speaks YouTube channel, which is directly in the link below. We got that set up for it. So all of you guys can just go to the description, click the link. It'll take you right there. It'll also take you to the human colonies, everything else. And also, before I go, a big shout out to the Spiked Axe, who is our admin over at the Discord server. If you guys want to be a part of the ET Whisperer community and you want to connect with people who are doing the same thing, who are listening to amazing channeling, who channel themselves, who share their channeling, who get on the microphone to talk about channeling or talk about how to fix a car, whatever you want to talk about, our Discord channel is amazing, and the Spiked Axe, Mr. Spiky, is the most amazing admin. He helps keep that place running. and all of you guys here every time support us. I want to thank you to our Patreon community, who is the nuts and bolts. If it wasn't for them, this show would not exist. They give us the opportunity financially to set aside 1 day per week to be here with you guys. So this is featured from our Patreon people. If you want to join our Patreon, you can go there too. Thanks again, brother. Thank you for being here. I love you so much. It's great talking to you, catching up with you, and we'll talk soon again. I'm sure you'll be on the show sometime in the future now that I'm bringing back the show, right?
Absolutely. And I want you to come on to Human Colony as well. So I know we have to do a little bit different for your hours, but that's fine with me.
I would love to, brother. Yeah, it sucks. I can't channel earlier than 3 p.m., so it kind of screws up the morning live streams for you guys. But I will come on for sure.
I love you dearly. So take care, my friend, too. And thanks again. I enjoyed being here.
I love you too, brother, very, very much. And thank you for being here too tonight. Thank you all for being here tonight. That concludes, I believe this is episode 121, maybe not. Our episode close to 121, maybe 121 with our guest, Jim Charles. Love you guys all, and we'll see you on the other side. If you want to hang out too, Jim, after we disconnect, we could talk for a minute. All right, guys. Love you guys, and we'll see you on the other side. We'll see you next week with Casey Claire. Amazing channeler, amazing human being, a good friend for a long time. She'll be on next week. Join us for that. Love you guys.